It's unbelievable. This man actually invented a generator with a bearing and 2 syringes. He lit up light bulbs with ease and even tried to make a second sun out of it. Is this a fool's errand? All I can say after seeing the end of the video is that this man is amazing. The man first purchased a bearing online, and due to limited funds, used bearings are much cheaper than new ones. Next, he traces the outline of the bearing on a board and draws the imaginary shape of the bracket with it in the center. A saw blade was used to cut out the bracket along the red line, and then the bearing was gently hammered into the groove of the bracket. The workmanship could be described as very fine. The next step was to make a shaft from bamboo that matched the bore of the bearing, and you can see that the shaft is completely handmade. Next, a rivet shape was machined. The man glued the bracket with the bearing to another board and mounted a small motor on the bearing in reverse. Because he wasn't using electricity to drive the motor, he wanted the motor to generate electricity in reverse to light a light bulb. The man had prepared 2 clean syringes and 4 button magnets, which were obviously a little antique as well. When it comes to utilizing waste, Indians are really good. He glued the magnets to the syringes in the same direction to achieve the effect of peer repulsion. Then he removed 2 magnet rings from the old radio and glued them to the syringe with 502 glue. Now put the pusher into the syringe to see the effect. When the pusher is near the bottom, the magnetic force of the magnet repulsion pops the pusher back. Take 2 yogurt straws, cut them to 2 centimeters long and glue them to one end of the pusher with hot melt glue and make 2 simple springs out of bicycle strips. Next it was time to start assembling. First connecting the syringe to the bearing with a simple spring bar, then fixing the syringe to the bracket with hot melt glue, so that when the bearing rotates it will drive the actuator to make a piston movement in the syringe. The other side was fitted in the same way, so that a generator was complete. Only one of his fingers was needed to start the machine, and now the man was about to prove whether the great conjecture of the artificial sun could be realized or not. Just like that, a simple device without any energy input actually did light up a light bulb. The man said that if the device could be enlarged 10,000 times, it could light up its city 24 hours a day, and if it was enlarged 1 billion times, it could create a second sun. What do you think about the little brother's great solar dream? Was unbelievable. The man fixed 8 plastic bottles on the wheels and gave him a gentle boost, and the wheels began to spin like crazy, while driving the generator, and the fan connected to the power supply was also driven with ease. What kind of magical operation is this? Just see, the man first removed a wheel from the scrap bicycle, and the tire and liner from the wheel to separate the removal, only to retain the hub part. At the same time, he cleaned the rust from the hub and sprayed it with a coat of paint to protect it from rust. Next, he welded a bearing to a square tube, and welded this flat tube vertically to a larger flat tube to form a bracket. 2 of these brackets were made. The hubs were threaded into the brackets to hold them in place, and their bases were joined to form a single unit. As there were no ready-made fittings, the man found the lids of 2 paint buckets and glued them together with hot melt glue to create a belt-driven pulley. Once the gluing was done and the holes were ironed out in its center, it was ready to be mounted on the hub's center shaft. It's true that there's nothing you can't think of, nothing you can't do. Next, the man welded a short piece of pipe next to the base to facilitate fixing a board with a transformer and socket on it. A small generator was then connected to the fan to test its power. After testing, the fan rotates normally. After the test was completed, 2 plastic bottle caps were threaded into the generator, and a certain distance was left between the 2 caps, thus forming another pulley. In this way the generator can be mounted and fixed to the wooden board with screws. Once this is done and the motor is connected to the transformer with wires, the main structure of the device is complete. Now there is still one important accessory missing, which is the belt used for transmission. The man cut out a piece of the liner and sewed it together to form a homemade belt, which was put on 2 pulleys. After testing, the transmission was normal. At this point, there is one last important step left. The man fills the plastic bottles with water, making sure that each bottle contains the same amount of water, and in this way fills 8 plastic bottles before attaching them to the hub. In order to make the force uniform, the plastic bottles also need to be fixed in an even manner. Once all the bundles have been tied together, the power generator is complete. Now it is possible to test its effectiveness, and when the man gives the hub an initial boost, the magic happens. The wheels started spinning like crazy, which drove the generator, and the electricity generated gave the fan plenty of power. One has to admire the man's craftsmanship. So how many points can you give him for such a power generator made of plastic bottles and hubs?